Alright guys, we're in the last week of October, which means if you haven't started watching Halloween movies yet, you gotta get on it. And to help you along your cinema journey, I've compiled a list of my top 10 favorite movies to watch during Halloween, so let's get to it. What's up everybody, I'm Johnnie Omega, back with a new video, this time talking about my top 10 favorite movies to watch during Halloween. Now I'm not ranking these movies in terms of them individually because that would be a whole different list. But in terms of the holiday of Halloween, these are the 10 movies that at some point during the month are guaranteed to come off the shelf. So without any further ado, let's get started. Starting us off at number 10, we have It. Now ideally, if you have the time, I definitely would suggest watching Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, but for the basis of this list, we're going to stick with just the first movie. This movie was a whole lot better than I thought it would be, and a big chunk of that was Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise. This is one of the few times in Hollywood where somebody took a character that was played by somebody else and generally praised, and did a better job at it. Tim Curry was great as Pennywise, but Bill Skarsgård took it to a whole nother level. And then you have the kid actors on top of that who all did a good job, and it's kind of hard to tell which actor did the best job playing their character. A great ensemble cast and a great horror movie, you can't really go wrong with that. Next on the list at number 9, we have The Nightmare Before Christmas. Now some people might have this movie on their Christmas list, but for me, it's more Halloween. You got the main character of Jack Skellington, who's the king of Halloween Town, and he goes through the portal into Christmas Town, and after seeing what happens there, he pretty much gets obsessed with celebrating the holiday of Christmas. He kidnaps Santa Claus and he decides he's gonna do Christmas this year, but he does it with a Halloween twist. The whole thing is really just about merging the two holidays and how the people in the world don't really take too well what's going on. And even though it's animated, I wouldn't suggest it for really young kids, but for older kids, it's a great watch. Coming in at number 8, we have Saw. Now this is a horror movie that kind of makes you think, and it's really cool how it plays out in the end. This is the movie that introduces the character of Jigsaw, who's definitely on the short list of most creative killers in cinema history. This franchise as a whole is now 8 movies deep, and it was supposed to be a 9th movie that came out this year, but you know, pandemic and whatnot. What's really unique about this movie is that it primarily takes place in one room and uses flashbacks to piece everything together as these two guys try to figure out why they're there. It really changed the game when it came out 16 years ago, and it still holds up today. If you haven't seen this one yet, definitely give it a look. Next on the list at number 7, we have Ghostbusters. Now this is really a movie you can watch at any time during the year, but it does revolve around ghosts, so it's gotta hop up on my Halloween list somewhere. Now as a kid, I actually preferred the second movie to this one, primarily because that's the one that I saw first, but the older I got, the more and more I appreciated how good this movie actually is. Besides the stars to the cast, the movie itself is just incredibly well written, the effects still hold up, and it's just a great watch in general. And just like the Saw franchise, this franchise was supposed to get a sequel movie that came out earlier this year too, bringing its grand total to 3. Yes, I am counting correctly, 1, 2, 3, don't at me bro. But as another cinema casualty due to the pandemic, we'll have to wait till next year to see this one too. Coming in at number 6, we have Carrie. Now I think we can all agree that when it comes to Stephen King novels that have been adapted to movies, there's really only about a handful that are really good. And for me, Carrie is just head and shoulders above everything else. The 1976 one, not the 2013 one. We'll get to that in a separate video. The movie does a great job of just building and building as you follow Carrie through her high school bullying, through dealing with her crazy mother, to where she finds out that she's telekinetic. All leading to the worst prom ever. This film is by far the oldest movie on this list, and if you're looking at it for the first time through 2020 eyes, you might not be super impressed because it is kind of a slow burn, but it still is a great movie. Breaking us into our top 5, we have The Witches. Now this is probably the most kid-friendly movie on this list, but don't let that fool you with how good it actually is. Angelica Houston plays the Grand High Witch and comes up with the plan to turn all the children in the world into mice. And from a technical aspect, when it comes to practical effects, this movie is easily top tier when it comes to what Jim Henson was able to accomplish with animatronics and prosthetics. Then you just add on top of that the fact that you got a good story, and you got yourself a great movie. Now if I rank these movies based on how many times I've seen them in my life, this will be far and away number 1, but for the basis of this list, it sits at number 5. At number 4, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Now when it comes to big franchises of any genre that's about 4+ movies deep, there's really not too many of them where the third movie in the franchise is the best one, but this is a good example of that. After the massive dip in quality of the second movie, this movie basically took everything that was great about the first one and doubled down on it. You got a group of teens that come together to try to fight back against Freddy Krueger, and it's really cool how they manipulate their dreams to try to win. These teenagers put Freddy in a position where he pretty much has to step his game up, which makes for a lot of interesting kills. A big chunk of my favorite Freddy Krueger moments in the entire franchise takes place in this movie. And to be honest with you, if you take it out the restraints of a Halloween list, this is actually my #1 all-time favorite horror movie. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I wouldn't suggest jumping right into it without at least seeing the original first, so that way you can establish a baseline of what to expect. But after you watch #1, skip #2 and go straight to this one. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Kicking off our top 3, we have Scream. Now when it comes to horror movie franchises, this is the one of my teenage years. This movie pretty much changed the horror movie genre when it came out. This movie perfectly blends everything you love about a slasher film and everything you love about a murder mystery. When this movie first came out, there really wasn't too many horror movies where you had to figure out who the killer was. You knew who the killer was, you just had to figure out how to stop him. Wes Craven though just took this entire genre and flipped it on its head. You're now not dealing with the killer with some type of supernatural powers, you're dealing with a regular person. You just gotta figure out who it is. And what's crazy is that you might think that after watching a movie like this, it's probably gonna lose some of its rewatchability because you already know who the killer is. But that's not the case at all. 25 years later, this movie still holds up. Now, if you're lucky enough to have never seen this movie and haven't been spoiled on who the killer is, I highly suggest you go watch this movie ASAP. Next on the list of #2, we have Trick or Treat. Now this movie I would consider an accidental favorite. The first time I came across this movie, I had never heard of it before, had never seen a trailer, I just read the premise and it sounded interesting. It was nowhere near Halloween, but I sat down and watched it and my mind was completely blown with what I had just seen. The best way to describe it is like if Pulp Fiction was a Halloween movie. It's about 5 separate stories that all take place in this one town during Halloween night. The story takes place at different parts during the night and they're told out of order, but each individual story crosses paths with another one. But the cool thing is seeing how these stories interconnect and then piecing together when they take place during the night. And there's also about a handful of familiar faces that are sprinkled through the movie too. And it actually surprises me how many times I'll bring this movie up to people and they have no idea what I'm talking about. And not like, oh yeah, I heard of that movie, I just never got around to watching it though. But legitimately have no idea what I'm talking about. If you are one of those people, don't be one of those people anymore. Go watch this movie, you won't regret it. Now if you made it this far on the list, thanks for sticking with me. But before I reveal my #1 movie, here's some honorable mentions.
Oh dear, Mildred. Oh dear, dear. You must be the worst witch in the entire school.
I'll try harder.
Here's Johnny.
Oh, look. Look where?
And coming in at #1, we have Hocus Pocus. Now to anyone that knows me, this should really come as no surprise because me and this movie have a very intimate relationship. I've loved this movie ever since I was 10 years old and it comes on off the shelf every October like clockwork. To me, this is to Halloween what Home Alone is to Christmas. Admittedly, it is a bit cheesy and it's not like it's an Oscar caliber film, but what it is fun for the whole family. The Sanderson sisters are still funny to me and there's been rumors for the past couple years about a possible sequel to this movie. And if that does happen, I don't care if I'm the only grown man in the theater, I will be there opening night. Like I said, I was 10 years old when this movie first came out and we all know how strong nostalgia can be, and this movie always brings out the kid in me. My wife always looks at me weird when she sees how into this movie I am when it's on TV because she knows at any given point in time during this movie, I'm 2 seconds away from sitting on the floor Indian style. And I don't care either, I'm not even ashamed. And I'd probably do it too if it wasn't for these 37-year-old knees. You tend to sit a little different when that check knee light comes on. But when it comes down to it, it's one of my favorite movies to watch during the month of October. So that's my list of my top 10 favorite movies to watch during the Halloween season. Hopefully I've turned you guys on to a movie that maybe you haven't seen before, but always remember that this list isn't the right one, it's just mine. 0% scientific and 100% biased. But I would like to know what movies you guys like to watch during the Halloween season, so comment below and let me know. Thanks for watching. If you like what you've seen, hit that thumbs up and click that subscribe button and see what's coming next.